In this section, we're going to be looking at what could be interpreted as a form of regret when people offer things to the Lord and they regret it and they want them back. Leviticus 27:1, and the Lord said to Moses, 27:2, say to the Israelites, when a man shall make a special vow of persons to the Lord at your valuation. 27:3, then your valuation of a male from 20 years old to 60 years old shall be 50 shekels of silver according to the shekel of the sanctuary. So we have the Lord explaining this system to Moses, and Moses is explaining it to the people. When it comes to the valuation, this is in regards to people when they sell themselves to the Lord, that they offer themselves to the Lord. Maybe they wouldn't sell themselves to the Lord because I don't think he pays them for it. It would be something like they were to give themselves, to dedicate themselves to the Lord, and that would be that. But let's say they have a change of heart and they don't want to do that anymore and they want to go back to doing their own thing. The Lord's going to charge them for that, and here we are seeing the prices. First, we start off with a male from 20 years old to 60 years old, so from a young man to retirement age, basically, so somebody that could still physically work and be active. We have a valuation of 50 shekels of silver. Now, when it comes to the value of a shekel, that is a little bit more difficult to ascertain. One of the things I was reading was that the temple tax of half a shekel would be about 2 days' wages. If that's true, this would be like 200 days of work at a regular standard paying job, like not a high skill labor or anything, just regular day laboring. So not an insignificant amount of money, but not a tremendous amount either. Leviticus 27:4, and if the person is a female, your valuation shall be 30 shekels. And here we have the same, but for a woman. And we see that it is 30 shekels, which is less than 50. About 120 days labor. This was a mercy that was given to women, presumably because they couldn't make as much money as men in those days. I don't think this was some sort of validation that God values women less than men or anything along those lines. If anything, he made them complementary so that the two could become one and be greater than the sum of their parts. Leviticus 27:5, and if the person is from 5 years old up to 20 years old, then your valuation shall be for the male 20 shekels, and for the female 10 shekels. We can see that in youth, the young people, the valuation price is significantly less. It would be a lot more difficult to earn a lot of money as a youngster who is not fully developed and is limited on the roles that they can do for labor. Leviticus 27:6, and if a child is from a month up to 5 years old, then your valuation shall be for the male 5 shekels of silver, and for the female 3 shekels. This is incredibly young for this to occur, and it's likely that the payment would be made by a relative or a kinsman to redeem them, for they wouldn't be able to labor to raise the funds on their own when they're a month old. They wouldn't be able to do very much at that age. Leviticus 27:7, and if the person is from 60 years old and above, if it be a male, then your valuation shall be 15 shekels, and for the female 10 shekels. So here we're looking at an individual that's quite elderly, and they're probably limited on what they can do, and they might need to be looked after as well. And maybe that's why they're trying to get out of this service, for they're unable to perform. But it's hard to say. Maybe they just got tired of it. It could be a myriad of reasons. There's no specification here. But I think if the heart wasn't in it, there you go. That's probably it. So the amount of funds are far lower here. It's definitely a mercy. Leviticus 27:8. But if the man is too poor to pay your valuation, then he shall be set before the priest, and the priest shall value him. According to the ability of him who vowed, shall the priest value him. So in the event someone is unable to pay, maybe they're broke or something, or they're having other issues, maybe they have some sort of disability or something, and they're unable to make the payments. We have an interview process here with the priest, and he is able to determine the value, and he can set the price that the person has to pay. This is kind of a catch-all for some of these other scenarios that would not be defined here, and with any luck you have a nice godly priest who will be able to resolve this fairly. Leviticus 27:9. If it is a beast of which men offer an offering to the Lord, all that any man gives of such to the Lord shall be holy. 27:10. He shall not replace it or exchange it, a good for a bad, or a bad for a good. And if he makes any exchange of a beast for a beast, then both the original offering and that exchanged for it shall be holy. So now we've moved past people and we're looking at animals, looking at the beast. And the man who's giving the beast, maybe he regrets it, he gave the wrong one, whatever. He wants to exchange it, denied. And if he presses the matter, well then the one that he gave is going to be the Lord's, and the one he wants to exchange it with will also be the Lord's. So there's kind of a bit of a punishment here, that there's no take-backs with the Lord. Leviticus 27:11. If it is an unclean animal, such as is not offered as an offering to the Lord, he shall bring the animal before the priest. 27:12. And the priest shall value it, whether it be good or bad. As you, the priest, value it, so shall it be. 27:13. But if he wishes to redeem it, he shall add a fifth to your valuation. So here we have an unclean animal being offered to the Lord. This is something that cannot be sacrificed to the Lord, cannot be made as an offering. Maybe it is a horse or a camel, two animals that are forbidden from being offered to the Lord, or it could be an animal that has some sort of defect in it that would prevent it from being offered as a sacrifice to the Lord. So there's a multitude of reasons there for that. As this is not a standard animal to be offered to the Lord, the priest has to decide its value. He needs to have discernment to quantify what the value of this animal is going to be. Then whatever that value is, we're going to see that in the next line with the redeeming it. So if the man wants to buy back this animal after offering it to the Lord, he has to pay that price to that priest set plus a fifth, so 20% more. Leviticus 27:14. If a man dedicates his house to be sacred to the Lord, the priest shall appraise it, whether it be good or bad. As the priest appraise it, so shall it stand. 27:15. If he who dedicates his house wants to redeem it, he shall add a fifth of your valuation to it, and it shall be his. There's definitely a wide array of things that can be offered to the Lord. And now we're looking at the house. And it follows the same rules as we saw before, that the priest, he comes in, he comes up with a value, and if the guy wants it back down the road, he's going to have to pay the price to get it back. And the price is based on the validation plus 20%. Leviticus 27:16. And if a man shall dedicate to the Lord some part of a field of his possession, then your valuation shall be according to the seed required for it. A sowing of a homer of barley shall be valued at 50 shekels of silver. 27:17. If he dedicates his field during the year of Jubilee, it shall stand according to your full valuation. 27:18. But if he dedicates his field after the Jubilee, then the priest shall count the money value in proportion to the years that remain until the year of Jubilee, and it shall be deducted from your valuation. So this one seems very similar to what we were looking at in the previous chapter when it comes to the Jubilee event, the event that occurs every 50 years, where the property returns to the original ancestral owner. So we have this field, and the value of the field is in the value of the crops that can grow on it, and they're using barley as a measure for determining the value of the field. And then it is divided up based on when the year of Jubilee is going to be. If it's sooner, it's going to be less money, and if it's longer, it's going to be more money. Leviticus 27:19. If he who dedicates the field wishes to redeem it, then he shall add a fifth of the money of your appraisal to it, and it shall remain his. 27:20. But if he does not want to redeem the field, or if he has sold it to another man, it shall not be redeemed any more. 27:21. But the field, when it is released in the Jubilee, shall be holy to the Lord, as a field devoted to God or destruction. The priest shall have possession of it. So the individual has the opportunity to redeem the field, or their kinsmen would have the opportunity to redeem this field. They could pay the price, 120%, a fifth more to reclaim it. But here is where it gets interesting. If it is not redeemed, it does not go back to them after the Jubilee, but it remains holy. So it stays the property of God after the Jubilee if they do not redeem it beforehand. And that's quite interesting. There's this other part here where it says that if he sells it to another man, this would be like offering the field to the Lord and simultaneously selling it to someone else. And it's like, well, if you try to pull that stunt, God's just going to seize the property and you're never getting it back. He doesn't take kindly to that. Leviticus 27:22. And if a man dedicates to the Lord a field he has bought, which is not the field of his ancestral possession. 27:23. The priest shall compute the amount of your valuation for it up to the year of Jubilee. The man shall give that amount on that day as a holy thing to the Lord. So here we have a man offering a field to the Lord, but this is not his ancestral property. This is one that he would have purchased from someone else. Someone else's ancestral property. And so the priests, they take a value of this land, and the number that they come up with, they get the man who is donating the field to the sanctuary to pay that amount at the time when they take possession of this field, right? It happens immediately. This is not a payment plan or something down the road. This is all at once, this whole event. Leviticus 27:24. In the year of Jubilee, the field shall return to him of whom it was bought, to him to whom the land belonged as his ancestral inheritance. So when the Jubilee comes around, the person who is the ancestral owner gets their land back. And they might not even know that it was being used for the Lord up until this period of time. So that's kind of crazy. Leviticus 27:25. And all your valuations shall be according to the sanctuary shekel. 20 gerah shall make a shekel. So there's a standard of currency that is going to be used for all this stuff. The temple shekel, which is 20 gerahs to 1 shekel. Leviticus 27:26. But the firstling of the animals, since a firstling belongs to the Lord, no man may dedicate, whether it be ox or sheep, it is the Lord's already. During the event of Passover, when the angel of the Lord passed over top of Egypt and slew all the firstborn, and the blood of the animals protected the Israelites' firstborns, they were effectively sold or given over to the Lord, that the Lord took possession of the firstborn, and this was kind of an eternal thing, that he would always get the firstborn of the Israelites, that it would be dedicated to him. And then the Israelites would have to pay money to get their firstborns back, whether it was people or animals. And now we're seeing this line here, and it's like, well, if it's already belonging to the Lord, you really can't offer it to him again. Leviticus 27:27. If it be an unclean animal, the owner may redeem it according to your valuation, and shall add a fifth to it. Or if it is not redeemed, then it shall be sold according to your valuation. So the firstborn of an unclean animal is quite interesting. God has ownership of the firstborns. So this animal cannot be dedicated to the Lord because the Lord already owns the animal. It belongs to him as a firstborn. But it cannot be offered because it's unclean. So there's not really a whole lot that can be done. But here we have a solution. When it comes to the redeeming, the priest sets a price for this animal, and the person is to pay a fifth more than that to redeem this animal. Leviticus 27:28. But nothing that a man shall devote to the Lord of all that he has, whether of man or beast or of the field of his possession, shall be sold or redeemed. Every devoted thing is most holy to the Lord. So we were looking at vows up to this point, and there was always a way of, breaking them or severing them or getting out of them by paying. I guess there was some circumstances there, but now we're looking at the devoted offering. This is much more hardcore. This is like an oath or a vow that is under a curse and is much more absolute, with no takebacks. We see the things that God receives as part of this devoted offering are made holy, and as such they are treated like holy objects. So they're not for everybody. The priest can interact with them, but they are now holy objects in the possession of the Lord. Leviticus 27:29. No one doomed to death under the claim of divine justice, who is to be completely destroyed from among men, shall be ransomed for suffering the death penalty. He shall surely be put to death. Devoting oneself to the Lord is not a get-out-of-jail-free card. And here we have an example of someone who is committed a crime or is being charged with a crime and is going to be sentenced to death. And he can't just say, well, I'm going to offer myself to the Lord, for he is guilty of this crime and he needs to receive the punishment of it. He's not able to get out from that circumstance. This is just a way to close in the loopholes, to prevent people from manipulating the rules and ordinances of the Lord. Leviticus 27:30. And all the tithe of the land, whether of the seed of the land or of the fruit of the tree, is the Lord's. It is holy to the Lord. 27:31. And if a man wants to redeem any of his tithe, he shall add a fifth to it. We have looked at tithing before, when it came to Abraham and his encounter with Melchizedek in the book of Genesis. And Abraham gave 10% of what he had to Melchizedek. Now we see here that 10% is to be given to the Lord. And this particular passage here is looking at an agricultural type of tithing, a land tithe. So we have the seeds of the land and fruit of the trees. As for why they would want to buy it back, I don't know. Maybe they buy it back, and then they're able to plant more seeds because they would have more seeds to plant. But even then, at 1 1/5 price, it's kind of expensive. So I don't know, but there's definitely some flexibility there. Leviticus 27:32, and all the tithe of the herd or of the flock, whatever passes under the herdsman's staff, by means of which each 10th animal, as it passes through a small door, is selected and marked. The 10th shall be holy to the Lord. 27:33, the man shall not examine whether the animal is good or bad, nor shall he exchange it. If he does exchange it, then both it and the animal substituted for it shall be holy. It shall not be redeemed. So here we have some more tithing, this time relating to animals, and letting them go through a small opening and then labeling every 10th one to be the animal for the tithe, without having any bearing on the quality or state of the animal. It's really quite interesting that way. Very different than what we've seen before with offerings made to the Lord, where offerings had to be without blemish and there was a lot of rules that way. But in this instance, we don't really have that, for this is just kind of a generalized payment. And by not looking at the animals, it would probably average out to the quality of whatever animals that herdsmen would have. And I like this second part here where it's talking about not examining the animals, and if he tries to switch them, then he's going to have to give both of them to the Lord anyway. So God doesn't mess around with that stuff. Leviticus 27:34. These are the commandments which the Lord commanded Moses on Mount Sinai for the Israelites. So this is the last verse in the book of Leviticus, and it's kind of summing everything up. That all these things that we saw previously, all these rules and regulations, these were what the Lord commanded Moses to tell the Israelites during a time when they were in Mount Sinai. Whether this was when Moses was on top of Mount Sinai talking to the Lord, or that was when they were in the region of Mount Sinai. It doesn't really matter, but it's certainly a collection of rules and regulations.